Sunday recap on a Tuesday, as we like to do it in the postseason. Kevin Bunk, Michael Merlo coming to you after Wildcard weekend. And I'd like to say what a thrilling weekend it was, Mike, but it really was not.
No, it wasn't. It's one of the more exciting weekends of the year, and we saw some bad football, Kevin, a lot of bad football. So we're going to talk about it. We're going to break it down. Some other coaches lost their jobs since we last spoke, so it's going to be a good one. But yeah, boring week of football outside of one game.
Yeah, we got a big slate today with all the games that are going on, all the games that went on. We're going to talk, of course, about division round matchups and Mike McCarthy fired, whatever you want to call it, yesterday. Mike Vrabel hired. We'll touch on that stuff, some other coaching rumors as well, but that'll be towards the end. We're going to work backwards. Start with last night. Vikings lose to the Rams. The year-old conversation about Sam Darnold that we've been having is, I think, coming to a head now, and we can stop having that conversation, but we'll discuss it today, of course. And the Rams win big. First, are they a threat next week? Are they a threat to move on? And what'd you think of the game?
Yeah, I thought the game was really interesting. You know, I listened to Greg Cosell speak about the game later in the week last week, and he had spoke about how he thought the Rams defensive line was going to control this game, how they were going to make such a massive impact. And that's exactly what happened. We can talk about Sam Darnold all we want, you know, what went on with him. I feel bad for Sam. I legitimately feel bad for Sam. It was tough to watch last night. That Rams defensive line was so good. The Vikings offensive line, they did him no favors whatsoever. So it was tough to watch, but yeah, I don't think the Rams have a chance next week. I don't think they have I don't think they match up well at all against the Eagles. I think this could be another big win for the Eagles coming up, but we'll obviously talk about that coming up.
I think last night, we'll start there with Darnold and the Vikings. Talk about just getting overwhelmed completely. He had no shot in this game. Now, I do think it also gives them grounds to not keep him this offseason the way that they finished the season. I think you hear Kevin O'Connell's comments last night about Sam's future, basically saying that he can continue to be great, but it didn't sound like he was saying he can continue to be great here. Sounded like he was saying almost goodbye to the year of Sam Darnold that he had and opening the door to his J.J. McCarthy, Daniel Jones quarterback room next season, which I think they're setting up. I really do, though. I really think that they brought him in to set that up.
I don't think so. I don't think they did that.
I think that they are excited for Jones to be possibly their backup next year.
I don't know. I think they did this all for the compensatory pick. They didn't sign him to the active roster. Mullins was the backup. Was it Mullins, right? He was the backup last night. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they see a future with Jones. I could be wrong, though. With Darnold, I'll say this. I don't think there's any reason for him not to get tagged here. You know, because you have McCarthy. McCarthy was banged up. You know, this could be looked at as this coming year could be looked at as his rookie year. I don't think there's any reason to not tag Darnold here. But if we're talking about the contract that Darnold's going to get on the open market if he's able to hit it, I can't see him getting more than Baker Mayfield. Well, no, let me say this. I wouldn't pay him more than Baker Mayfield. He'll probably get more than Baker Mayfield. But there's no reason to justify giving him more than what Baker got.
I think Darnold's a 1-year contract in the offseason with an option for the second year. I think that's what happened with Baker. I know that it's a totally different season. That's what happened with Baker after the year with the Rams. I know Darnold just did this entire 14-win campaign, but when Baker got the 1-year contract with Tampa, it was, okay, we like you a lot to be our guy, but we cannot commit to it long-term for the sake of our franchise. And I don't think that Darnold's going to get the interest level from teams that we thought he would have 5 weeks ago. And now in hindsight, I don't even think if his season ended positively and he played well yesterday and they lost and the Vikings let him walk, I don't even think he would have gotten the 4 or 5 year deal. I could be totally off on it. I could see him getting one of those Daniel Jones, Geno Smith type of contracts where teams are saying, we'll commit to you, but it won't hurt us really long term. But if it doesn't work out, we're probably all losing our jobs anyways. So that's one of those situations where it's going to depend on his market. Will there be more than 2 teams in on him? If there's just 2 teams in on him, they're both going to try and max out a year of pay for Darnold to get him. and get him in their system. I don't know how many teams are going to commit to him long term after seeing the way it ended up with Kevin O'Connell, who is one of the 5 best offensive minds in the league right now.
I think there's 2 teams that would line up and give him a decent sized contract right now. 2 teams right now.
Pittsburgh?
The Colts and Pittsburgh. Those are the 2 teams that I would see, okay, you know what? Let's commit 3 or 4 years at $30, $40 million, the Daniel Jones, Baker Mayfield-esque contracts. I think those are teams that have basically nothing to lose. You know, you have draft picks, you know, where you're not going to be able to get a quarterback this year. Do you want to sign another, if you're the Steelers, do you want to sign another 1-year contract to a veteran quarterback? I think Rodgers is a good fit if he leaves the Jets, but even so, Rodgers a 1-year thing. You could get Darnold, he's 27 years old, and if he gives you something close to the production that he had this season, you're easily a playoff team with, I think, more expectation than this past season with Wilson.
Yeah, I think that you have to gauge also on the open market, how does he stack up with the other guys that are available? Because you are going to have 2 theoretically good veterans available in Rodgers and Kirk Cousins for a year. Those are guys you don't have to commit to. You can try and win now with them. I don't think that's a great option. I don't think you think that's a great option for teams either, but that is a realistic option that Darnold's up against. I don't know. I just don't think that teams are going to be high on him in the way that you would have been high on Baker after that first year with Tampa, and then he gets the extension. I think that this is a different feeling with Darnold.
But isn't that the issue with, I think, both of these teams now? Like, we've had Richardson for 2 years, or really a year and a half, and I think, and I'm using the Colts and the Steelers because to me, these are the 2 teams with the biggest needs and the most ready-made rosters for a quarterback. You know,
I think so. I don't love Pittsburgh for Darnold. I will say that. I don't love Pittsburgh for Darnold.
Why don't you like them?
I think they have a bad offensive line, and they've had one now for a few years, so I don't trust them to fix that. I think that Arthur Smith, if he's the play caller, is not good enough. That's a huge regression from Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah.
And I don't think that their playmakers are good. I think Indianapolis has a chance at having some really good playmakers next year. I already like what they have with Pittman, Downs, and Taylor, and I think that they could just continue adding to that. Pittsburgh, I don't know. There's something way off with the way that they develop their offense around the quarterback.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh needs a couple more weapons to go along with Pickens and the 2 backs, and you're right about the offensive line. I mean, Arthur Smith's going to be coaching in the Meadowlands this year, so I don't know what you're talking about him. Going to be the offensive play caller there.
Do not put that on me. Do not put that on me.
I would wish that on my worst enemy. Yeah, so if we're going based on the Colts here, the issue has been, you know, prior to a major bust at quarterback with Richardson, because I'm ready to move off of him. I don't know.
I think they should be. I think that they should be at the point with Richardson, not to cut you off, that they should be saying, we can start him next year. He can be our guy next year, but we really have to exhaust every option to potentially upgrade.
And if they are able to, Darnold will be a good fit, because do you really think that franchise wants to be in another situation where, you know, and yeah, Darnold's a risk, but we're going with how many years in a row did they go with like a 1-year rental at quarterback? They had Rivers, they had Wentz, they had who was right before Richardson? Was it who?
Brissett. They had Matt Ryan.
They had Ryan. Like, do we really want to do this again? I don't think they do. I think they are more likely to spend big on Darnold, especially with the situation that Ballard's in here. He's on the hot seat. Than I think to go with Cousins or somebody like that.
Yeah, so there's a conversation to be had. I don't think that after the last 2 games, Minnesota is going to be so confident that they're keeping him, though. I think that they have a lot to answer. They're not going to offer him the highest contract if he is potentially going to hit the open market. I don't mind your idea of the franchise tag there. I think that makes sense. You lock him up for 1 year, and he would play on it. It's a lot of money for Sam Darnold based on what you look at his career has been. He gets another chance to prove it. And then listen, if they win another 13 games with Sam Darnold, or even 11 plus, and he has close to a season like he had this year, then he's definitely stepping into the open market looking for that 4 or 5 year deal that's going to pay him close to $200 million. So it's a good win-win, the franchise tag. I just don't know if Minnesota's going to do it.
We're just like 2 weeks ago when he beats Green Bay and he has that, heroic entrance into the locker room after he walks in late. And he played such a great game, and O'Connell's praising him. I mean, to go from that to where we are right now is such a complete 180. I can't believe we're even here and we're even discussing this, because
crazy.
After that game, I was as confident as anyone. 4 years, $45 million. You're trading McCarthy, and this is your guy. And the last 2 weeks, I mean, there's been so much pressure on this kid, and he probably costed himself close to, if not $100 million.
I mean, we jumped on here and we basically said to each other, how could you justify in the locker room letting this guy walk? Because of how much they love him. And that definitely still will ring true. Justin Jefferson had a very good year. The offense had a very good year. The team overall had one of their best seasons in franchise history. The fact that they fell short in a playoff game against the Rams, who, listen, we have been on the Rams since the season ended last year. We've been high on this team. And I'm not trying to knock them here as a bad team or anything. But that was a team Minnesota had to beat when you consider their regular season. It was a game, essentially they just had to win their round 1 game. They really did. And they lost it, and it makes their whole season feel so much different, because now they feel fraudulent. Now they feel like they didn't belong today, and I don't think that's true, because we sat here and sang their praises all regular season. That wasn't fake, but now I just sit here and I'm like, how did this team win 14 games?
We weren't wrong.
We weren't. And I want to just pose this question. Now, in the span of 3 years, Kevin O'Connell has lost playoff games with 13 and 14 win teams. He has not won a playoff game yet as a head coach. And we might have to just take a look at his team's abilities and how tough his teams actually are, because they got handled by the Giants team that really has been terrible the last 2 years. And the same coaches, and Daniel Jones was on that squad that was in Minnesota. And the Giants, I know it was a close game, it was a 1-score game. Giants kind of went in there and gave it to him.
Yeah.
As a 9-win team. So that is not a good look on his resume. And also, this one, you win 14 games. I know you had to go on the road, but you're playing indoors still. You're playing a team in the Rams who weren't great all year, but were very good, and you lose. It's just a little concerning for me with O'Connell and the team and how tough they actually are.
We were never wrong. You're going to go on social media, you're going to listen to shows today, and they're going to tell you that, Darnold was a fraud and this was a fraud year and the Vikings weren't that good. And, there's certainly concerns for how the season ended. I'm not going to just look away from that, but this was a good football team for most of the season. They were a very good football team. And Darnold played very well against good opponents, against bad opponents, and he kind of just fell apart here at the end. So it's like, we're going to hear that all day, and I don't want to hear it. It's not fair. It's not right, because what we watched for 3 months, that didn't just magically appear, right? I don't think I have questions about O'Connell. I thought he had a fraudulent team in 2022. I thought that team was legitimately fraudulent. And I think this team had a terrible offensive line that couldn't protect Darnold, and Darnold knew it, and Darnold just couldn't do anything about it. I mean, I like Darnold as much as anybody, but if you have a shaky offensive line in front of him, nothing good is going to happen.
I'll also say, just on the defense of the offensive line, if we want to give them one, first of all, they were not good last night, so don't think I'm going there. They were terrible last night.
Yeah.
But he held the ball the last 2 weeks of the season way too long.
Yeah, agreed.
And we said it a week ago, this was the first big game Sam Darnold has ever played in, was the Detroit game. He never played in a big game in the NFL. Jets, Panthers, Niners run to the Super Bowl. He's the backup. So he never played in a big game. And the last 2 weeks of the season, including their playoff game, both felt like postseason games, and he was not comfortable. He didn't look comfortable at all in either of those games. And the offensive line was awful, but he did not look comfortable.
They were banged up. They've been banged up all year. It came back to haunt them in the end. He 100% held the ball too long. He tried to escape way too much. and then that led to bad sacks. I mean, he took way too many, but he had no time to throw. He just looked so uncomfortable. I thought in Detroit, he just looked jumpy, right? He was just like, he was putting too much zip on the ball. He just was not ready for that game, and that was a tough atmosphere. This was about the offensive line, I think, at least. Last week was on him. Yesterday, I think it was on him, but it was more on the offensive line because he just had no time. He was under pressure all night.
Yep, and I think that the defensive coordinators that he played the last 2 weeks, obviously Aaron Glenn is being highly regarded right now, but also Shula is terrific. I thought that was a great replacement for the Rams.
Yeah,
for Morris, and he did a great job last night. Both guys are great, and they had the book on him. They just knew we got to get into the backfield here. And Glenn drew up a lot of different stuff last week that I think confused Darnold, a lot of different disguised coverages, a lot of pressure still in that game, and threw him off. But I agree with you. Most of last week, I think he was a little jumpy. He was a little nervous, had that anxiety kind of feel with him playing. But you know what? It's a tough end to the season for what was really the best story all year long, man. We talked about it so many times on the show. They were so easy to root for.
Yep.
And the whole league, every year you kind of have that one underdog team that people didn't expect to be great, ends up being great. And they were that team this year. And it's a tough finish for them to score, 18 points in their final 2 weeks of the season. Maybe they scored a garbage time touchdown against Detroit to increase that number, but they did not play well the last 2 weeks. On both sides of the ball, really, their defense was so great all year, a couple all-pros on it, and they did not play great the last 2 weeks either. They got worn down. Maybe that's because the offense was putting them on the field the whole game. I don't know. But tough finish for the Vikings this year. I think that we do have to give credit to the Rams for the fact that Sean McVay gets his team to the postseason and they're ready to play, and Matt Stafford is so great in the playoffs and in big games, and he throws the football as well as anyone we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And these receivers are so clutch, and their defensive line lost Aaron Donald, and they are dominant still.
Are they better than they were 2 years ago?
I think that they are. I think that the defense, the pass rush is better. I think that the offense is a little worse, but I think that the team is really good, man.
One scary part about this defense is they're so young. It's such a young defense, and you see it up front how great they are right now, and that youth and that speed, and they're only going to get better. But the one thing that's going to improve is the secondary. The secondary is going to improve over the next couple of years as well. They've done such a great job drafting. They're going to have to find their future quarterback to keep this run going. But there were so many times, Kevin, this season where we watched this team and we had said, at least for me, there are a couple of times where I'm like, this isn't a playoff team. And then they showed you why they're a playoff team, and they obviously get in, they win the division. And what a dominating performance last night, both offensively and defensively. Dealing with all these issues in LA right now and having to move the game. They showed up in a big way. McVay, I mean, we talked about it last week with top three coach in the league.
Easy. Seriously, though, who would you take over McVay at this point? Andy Reid? Probably only Andy Reid, because I wouldn't take Shanahan. I wouldn't take any of the Harbaughs. It wouldn't take Tomlin. Wouldn't take DeMeco Ryans. Just thinking the guys that are left right now. McVay's the second best coach in the league, and he's 30 years younger than Andy Reid. It's just incredible, man, what they do.
I agree with you.
And Bill Parcells always said it, and Belichick always said it. Doesn't matter really what you do before Thanksgiving. You just got to get a couple wins under your belt. After Thanksgiving into late December, that's when you got to be playing football the way your team should be. It might not look pretty for the first 10 weeks of the year, 12 weeks, but that's what the Rams have done, is now it's playoff time. And I think they're going to be a big threat next week against Philly. My last point with the Rams-Vikings was just, we spoke about it when the Lions were healthy. I think LA now is the team, because the Lions are hurt. LA is the team that can go toe-to-toe with Philly in the trenches both ways. And that is where I get a little concerned for Philadelphia, because, Mike, we can segue into this game and go to Sunday Night Football later, but Jalen Hurts was fine on Sunday. I don't think he had to do too much to win that game, but you worry about the Eagles offense that has felt a little stagnant all year, if the Rams come out playing the way they played last night, you feel concerned about the Eagles' ability to play from behind against them.
I feel concerned about the Eagles' ability to play from behind. I'll say that. The passing game has not been there this season. It certainly did not look good on Sunday against the Packers. Now, you mentioned it. They didn't need to do too much against the Packers. The Packers, were just nothing, and the defense for the Eagles is so good. So I'll give you that. If the Eagles have to play from behind with the way the passing game has looked, I'm slightly nervous. But I don't think they're going to be playing from behind. I don't think the Rams match up well against this team. I think you're taking your strength right now, which is your defensive line, and you're putting it against their greatest strength, their offensive line, with all pros all over the field. So that's the one thing. Will they create some pressure? Sure. More so than Green Bay did, and maybe other teams will be able to do? Sure. But I don't trust that they'll be able to get home against that offensive line, and I don't trust that the Rams offensive line is going to be able to keep the Eagles defense at bay. I think it's a bad matchup for the Rams. I really do.
All right, that's fair. I'd still pick the Eagles, but I like the Rams to keep it close. Let's move on now. Sunday Night Football, and then we'll go back to the Eagles.
Yeah.
Real quick, Sunday Night Football. The only major thought I have on this game, Tampa just wasn't great this year. They won a bad division. They got a home game. But for Washington, imagine being a Commanders fan and you're so excited last year that Snyder sells this team and you get Harris and you wonder what is going to be the trajectory, or you're just glad that Snyder's gone, whatever. Year one, you get a playoff win and a drought that is 18 years old now, over 7,000 days or almost 7,000 days since your last playoff win. Rookie quarterback, a second-time head coach capitalizing on his second stint so far, an offensive coordinator that was just kicked to the curb by the NFL a few years ago, and he's back, and now he's fast-tracking himself to head coaching opportunities because of how great he was this year. And just a team that overall, under this new ownership and this entire new reign, you see Josh Harris and Magic Johnson after the game. How would you not be more excited than you've been in your entire life if you're a Washington sports fan? And I'm saying, if you root for every Washington sports team equally, you don't have a particular favorite and you just love Washington sports, this is almost more exciting than the Nationals winning the World Series. This is almost more exciting than the Capitals winning the Stanley Cup, just because of the path to get here and how bad it was under Snyder. The fact that you have this young nucleus that you can win with for the next decade has to be just having you through the roof, man.
And you watch this kid play. You watch Daniels play, right? And it's not just the great plays he makes. It's not the exciting plays he makes, the great throws. It's how great he is under pressure. I mean, he looks like a 5-year, 10-year veteran under pressure late in these football games. Mm-hmm. He rarely makes the big mistake. He makes plays, whether it's with his legs, whether it's with his arm. He makes every play he needs to make late in games. He's great under pressure. When they blitz him, it's funny, I forgot about the stat until the other night. He's almost perfect this year against the blitz. He is so good against the blitz, and we know what Todd Bowles likes to do. He blitzes the crap out of you. And they did the same thing the other night. And what does Daniels do? Nothing. Poised, makes the big plays, and they have a chance to win the game late. He sets them up, and they do so. It's a dream season. He is a, I don't want to overreact. Is he a once in a lifetime player for a franchise? Like for a franchise like that, he might be a once in a lifetime kind of football player. He's unbelievable. He's remarkable. And the story is probably going to end this week, but man, has it been a good one.
And I think they got a shot, first of all.
You think so?
Just throw that out there. I don't think there's a team in this second round that doesn't have a chance to win their game. Houston would be the biggest gap, I think, for me between the team they're playing. But with Daniels, I actually agree with you. I think that this is one of those guys that, for a franchise who's had great success before Snyder owned the team, 3 Super Bowls, a lot of my favorite teams ever under Joe Gibbs, and they never had a quarterback. They won 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. And yeah, Joe Theismann was an All-Pro, and he won the Super Bowl the year he was an All-Pro, but then his leg shatters, and he's really never the same again. And when he won the All-Pro, he was a weak first-team All-Pro MVP kind of guy. So that's just, to get Daniels with the second pick after hitting a low point in your franchise's history, really, after Jay Gruden and then Ron Rivera, and you're still having PTSD about RG3 not working out. Daniels is just the greatest godsend. And this is the type of guy that you tell your grandkids about. I got to watch Jaden Daniels play for my favorite team. And because look at NFL franchises, how many of them have one franchise all-pro quarterback type of guy, let alone, the few franchises that have 2 or 3 in their history. Washington's never had one, and they are stepping into that right now. Now, he played 1 year. He could get hurt. He could have one of those unfortunate careers where it doesn't work out, but it just feels so great right now.
He feels a lot like he's a better thrower of the football than Lamar was out of college, and he might end up being a better thrower of the football in totality than Lamar ever was, in a couple of years, which is saying a lot because of how great Lamar has improved and how well he's playing. And he's got the quickness and the ability to run, not as great as Lamar, but pretty close to it. He's a remarkable football player that, again, is so clutch. And I mean, how long did it take Lamar to win a playoff game here? And I think Lamar's easy comparison. Lamar should be a 3-time MVP. It's a great, obviously great comp, great respect for Daniels. But how long did it take Lamar? This kid in his first playoff game goes to a tough place, a tough team. They've been good this year, and they've had a lot of experience in the postseason now the last few years. They've won the division, 4 straight years. So this wasn't, an easy playoff win. I mean, it wasn't a terribly difficult place to play, but it was a team that's had experience in the postseason and a quarterback that had a great year. And by the way, the Washington roster is not that great.
It's good, not great. Yep.
They don't have great weapons on the outside. McLaurin finally showed he's a pretty good wide receiver last week. The defense isn't great. They have the worst rush defense in the league, I'm pretty sure. They're going to get throttled this week, which is why I don't think the game's going to be close, by the way. But he's doing this in year 1 of this regime. And by the way, you talk about, this franchise suffering. How about the fact that they thought that Ben Johnson, the hot name last year, was going to want to come here and coach, and he said, I'm good. And it almost felt like they were settling for Dan Quinn, and it was definitely not a settle. I mean, Dan Quinn has done such an unbelievable job with Kingsbury. They're remarkable. They are remarkable.
Dan Quinn felt like, in the coaching search, the third option that you didn't really want, but you were like, this is the worst we can do, and I'd still be a little bit excited for the season, because it was Ben Johnson and Belichick were the names that everyone was throwing around as the elite coaches, and Washington thought they could have had either with the second pick in the draft and a new GM coming in. You thought that they could have gotten either and a new owner, and they didn't get either of them. They missed out on both. They didn't want Belichick. Ben Johnson burns him, and Dan Quinn comes in as kind of like the bastard child of their coaching search and was terrific. Terrific. But I will say with Dan Quinn, the in-game management, I'd be wildly concerned going into next week. First of all, these 2 coaches next week, Quinn and Campbell, why even bring a kicker or a punter?
Well, the one thing I'll say in this one is, if you're the Commanders, you have to be ultra aggressive. If you want to win this game, if you want to pull off this upset, you're 8.5-point dogs on the road, you have to go for it. You have to be aggressive at times. So that I'll give you. I don't know, Kevin. I think it worked out. The way he went for things last week. They're so good on 4th down, where they get it 2 out of the 4 times, and they ended up.
Yeah, but the two that they blew. First of all, for me, opening drive of the game, you're down 3-0, 4th and 3 against Tampa Bay. Get the points. That's the one that really bothered me. And then later on in the fourth quarter, though, there's like 11 minutes left. You're inside the 30. Just kick it to go down 1 instead of stay down 4. Just, you're getting the ball back. If you kick it and you're down 1, unless Tampa scores and goes for 2 and gets it, you're not out of reach. But if Tampa was to go score a touchdown, game's over. And they didn't get the 4th. They're lucky the defense got a stop. And then they get it later. Now, here's where I understand the analytics play a role. Is if we have 4 or 5 situations like this all game, one of them are going to result in a touchdown, at least. So that's where I get it. But there's just a couple different situations. Dan Campbell blew it last year in the NFC Championship. I haven't stopped talking about it since. And I just didn't like that Quinn did that. And Quinn has to understand that on his resume is the worst loss in NFL history.
Right. But, and I'll go back to it again. And maybe you're right. It wasn't the spot to be so aggressive because, you're equally, I think, as talented, maybe a little less than Tampa. In this one, they got to be aggressive. So I'll almost defend him in this spot when he does go for it and get cute at times. They're great. What are they? Are they the greatest team ever on 4th down? They were the greatest regular season. Yeah, they were this regular season. So when you have that much confidence in your guys and you've had that much success all season, I don't know, on 4th and short and stuff like that, I'm probably going. I would agree with Quinn there. I'm probably going.
All right, that's fair. You want to move on here to Packers-Eagles.
Yeah.
Eagles get the win. As expected, we thought they were going to blow them out. It wasn't much of a blowout, but from that opening kickoff fumbled, Packers were in control of absolutely nothing. And that the game ended on the first play. I literally felt that way, which just, lends itself to how well the Eagles came out. And also the fact that the Packers, who have been up and down in postseasons in the Matt LaFleur era, and with Jordan Love here, just did not feel ready to go and felt completely outmatched. For me, I just thought the Eagles controlled it. I think if they wanted to score more points, they probably could have, but they didn't, and they got the win.
They also probably didn't show too much.
Yeah.
They were not impressive offensively at all in this game, other than their offensive line and running game, obviously, which is always impressive. And, it's just them blocking and Saquon doing his thing. Listen, this team, to me, is the best team in the NFC. I still think this is going to be the team that represents the NFC in the Super Bowl. That defense is so well coached with Fangio, and they're so talented everywhere. Nakobe Dean will be a tough loss. I'm pretty sure he suffered a significant knee injury. He was carted off the field. That'll be a tough loss. He turned into a good player for them this year, but they're so good everywhere else. This team, to me, will have no problem with the Rams this week. And you're right. No control whatsoever for Green Bay. I watched this game with a lot of Eagle fans in Atlantic City this weekend. So it was a loud atmosphere, and nobody was worried about this football game. I would ask a couple Eagle fans while I was walking around the casino. I said, any concern? Not really. Not much for this Green Bay team. Going to be a lot. I can't wait to talk about this team in the offseason, Kevin, because there's going to be a lot of questions for this team. I don't think there's any excuse next year. They're going to be another year older. I think the thing with this roster is that they're young. Maybe another year older with more experience. They'll have some room to make some more moves. I think they need another receiver. There's no excuse next season. None.
No, they're out of them. They're done with excuses. And if you go into next season again without adding an outside playmaker or just any pass catcher that is better than what you have now, it's just doing your quarterback a disservice. And I'll say with the Jacobs signing, which was great, Josh Jacobs was terrific this year.
He's great.
Don't you feel like the Jacobs signing told you they don't completely trust Love or their passing game, whatever it is, why the reason that they don't trust the passing game? But didn't you feel like the fact that they went over and the first skill player they really overpay for in years is a running back just told me that maybe they don't love their ability to throw?
It's telling. I think what a lot of people don't realize is this kind of Shanahan, McVay style of offense. You want to run the ball. I mean, that is like the big thing. And look how many times, maybe not last night, the Rams did not run the ball at all last night for whatever reason, but go back and watch a lot of these Ram games all year. They ran the ball with Kyron Williams a ton. You know, when Shanahan's having success, he's running the ball with McCaffrey a lot. Same thing here. I think LaFleur wants to run the ball, so I think the running game is such an important part of the offensive system for the Packers that they needed a back. I don't necessarily believe it's that they don't trust Love. I just think I think it was just a move to make him feel a little bit more comfortable.
Okay, that's fair. And you're right. This Shanahan, LaFleur, McVay scheme, they want great running backs. They make great running backs. And LaFleur, if you look at what he did in Tennessee, Derrick Henry was not the Derrick Henry we know until Vrabel and LaFleur got there and turned him into an absolute monster. Yep. And that is totally Matt LaFleur's credit that you have to give him all that and the scheming for the run game. Now you see Shanahan, obviously, they sold the farm for McCaffrey. They did everything that they could to get a great running back on the field. You see Kyron Williams in LA with McVay and all these guys, and now Harbaugh and Monken had to go out and sign Henry and Sirianni, so on and so forth, goes against Barkley. But the teams want to prioritize these running backs now and get running backs that can hit home runs and run between the tackles for the yards that you need to get that are tough. And you can't do that with Raheem Mostert all game long. You can't do that with the guys that they were doing it with. And I mean, Aaron Jones is always hurt, so Green Bay had to move on. A.J. Dillon stinks, so Green Bay had to go get Jacobs. But encouraging win for Philly still for me, the fact that they were able to control the game. Their defense is so great. Their defense is just terrific. And they get another home game next week, potentially their last home game of the season. Maybe not. Washington, can they pull off the upset? And we'll see. That would be something.
Yeah.
But yeah, good win for Philly. I don't really have much else on it. We'll see how Hurts looks. I just didn't think he had to do enough to actually judge their passing game this week.
No, but I think they'll have to show something this week. They'll have to show some stuff this week. And
they do.
If you're going to beat Detroit, Hurts is going to have to be that guy that we saw in – the defense going to have to be great, but I think we're going to have to see something close to what we saw in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
To beat Detroit, in Detroit.
The 1 o'clock game on Sunday, Broncos-Bills. I don't need to talk about it at all. Bills came in, better team. They've been great all year, contender all year. They're here every season. And Denver was the rookie quarterback team that overachieved this year and just didn't really belong, but good season.
Yeah, nothing there. Knicks made it interesting with that first play bomb to Franklin, that first drive bomb to Franklin. But other than that, yeah, it was boring. I had the Bills big 7.5 point favorites, and that was easy.
And I'll just say Buffalo cannot have the first half that they had against Denver, against Baltimore.
We're going to talk about that game coming up right now, right? Or after.
So we'll just switch quick here. Baltimore Saturday night.
Yeah.
Nice win. Listen, this is a huge game for them this week against Buffalo. I said yesterday on the bunker, Allen and Lamar both have to win this game because of the MVP race, because of the fact that neither of them have gotten to a Super Bowl. They both have to win this football game. I like Baltimore. Henry, I said it a few weeks ago. You didn't argue it that I wasn't saying it true, so I'm not saying that, I told you so. They shut Henry down for the last 3 or 4 games of the regular season. They knew that they were good running him 10 to 14 times a game. He wasn't doing much, and they said, let's give you a month off with limited action before we absolutely throw you into the fire and give you 30 touches a game in the postseason. And he dominated Pittsburgh. And Lamar looked awesome. Zay Flowers didn't even play. Is it a product of Pittsburgh being terrible to finish the season? Is it a product of Baltimore being great to finish the season? I think it's both. But am I crazy to say I think this Baltimore team feels different?
I can't say it because I thought they were different last season with that defense. So I can't trust them. Now, I think they're probably going to win this game. I still don't know where I'm going yet in terms of who I'm going to pick.
Long week to decide that.
I lean Baltimore at the moment. It's a really tough game to pick, though, Kevin. It's almost impossible. But the Baltimore defense has played a lot better since really the middle of the season here. They have done a better job. So, yeah, it's a tough game. I think there's more pressure on Lamar. I'll say that. Because we've seen good performances from Allen in the postseason where he's lost games that weren't his fault. We've seen way too many instances of the Ravens losing playoff games, big playoff games, because of Lamar. So that's the one thing I'll say.
I also think the fact that he's going to win the MVP and he is the all-pro quarterback play a role into pressure because now your MVP season or Allen's lack of an MVP season that people might look back at and say, yeah, well, he was the best player this year. That is negated if you lose to the runner-up. You cannot lose to the runner-up. And for Allen, now he's got nothing to lose legacy-wise this season. I know he's not thinking of it this way. He's thinking of winning the game on Saturday. But he's got nothing to lose legacy-wise this weekend because if he loses to Lamar, it was, all right, Lamar had the MVP team. They went all in with Henry, and Allen presumably played a pretty good game in the postseason when they lost. Lamar, it's you had your team with Henry. You had your Pro Bowl wide receiver with Flowers, Pro Bowl tight ends with Andrews. Likely is very good offensive line. I think good enough defense. I think the defense being bad is overblown here. I don't think it's great, but I think it's good enough, and they have enough playmakers. But Lamar will be looked at as saying he won the third MVP, and he got bounced by his runner-up, and he just can't get to the big game at all. He has no chance. This is one of those years that I think could really damage his legacy as a playoff player.
There's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure on both guys.
But
more on Lamar. More on Lamar.
I will say, if you want to throw in, who are the two guys that one on each team that really need to take this game over and help their quarterbacks, is how much of a role are these running backs going to play? Yeah. Cook and Henry are massive factors in Allen and Lamar's success. So these running backs absolutely need to have days. And Todd Monken, who completely botched the AFC title game last year by letting Lamar throw it all game. You only gave 15 carries. They only ran 15 run plays. You need to pound the rock right out of the gate, and you got to find a way. What is your best 30, 40 run plays that you've ever had in your entire life, and you got to run all of them from the first drive of this game?
And the same thing with Brady running Cook. Cook ran the ball 3 times last week, 23 times, 120 yards. Henry ran the ball 26 times for 186 yards. I mean, it's going to be these teams, I've said this in the regular season. Maybe I was wrong. I'll admit when I'm wrong. It's like this, I guess this stigma, like you got to throw the ball in the postseason, right? You got to be able to throw the ball when you need to in the postseason. Mm-hmm. But you also can't go away from your identity as well. And if your identity is running the football, then you need to do what you can to run the football early in these games and set your quarterback up to have success. And I hope the Eagles don't do that with Saquon. We saw that early in the year where they went away from the run. And they went back to it, obviously, and Saquon was an MVP candidate. And both of these teams, use your running backs, get them going early, and let's see where we go from there. I can't wait for this game. Haven't been excited for a football game like this in a very long time. I'll say that.
No, this is an elite division round matchup, best of the 4 by far. Mm-hmm. And I trust the offensive coordinators to do what you just said. I trust them here, especially Brady. I trust to make sure that they're setting the tone with the running backs and with the run game. And we've talked before about 4th down, going for it on 4th. Just an aside here, these two teams going for it on 4th and 3 or closer, it's automatic.
Yep.
They do not, especially Buffalo. Allen will run a tush push for 25 yards if you let him. Yeah. I mean, they're 4th and 1, 4th and 2. You're playing, it's basically 1st and 8 when they start a set of downs against you. It's 1st and 8. You got to stop them from getting 8 yards or really 6, 7 yards, or they're getting the first down.
It's a good point. It's a great point. Does the winner here, if Brady has a great game and Monken doesn't. Does that give an edge in terms of head coaching? I think Monken is a serious candidate in a couple of spots for head coaching opportunities. Same with Brady. Does that sway anything, a win or a loss here?
I think so. I think it can, especially for Monken. If Monken has a big game with Lamar this week, because I think Brady's a big candidate regardless. So neither of them will get jobs, though, I don't think, because McCarthy became available.
Yeah.
And now McCarthy gets pushed up to the top with Ben Johnson of offensive coaches that we'd like to hire.
Mm-hmm.
So Brady gets bumped down a peg. Monken would get bumped down a peg too. Monken's age, I think he's 63. That doesn't help when teams looking for head coaches now. They like to go on that younger side of things.
Yeah.
If you're not an experienced head coach.
I'd hire him still, though.
I would too. I think Monken could be a very good coach. He's never had a chance to be a head coach. So you think he's worked with a million different guys who have had success in his career, and he's had success at the college level. He's had success at the pro level. Monken's a guy that teams should definitely be bringing in for interviews. Chargers. You want to go to the Chargers game here?
Yeah.
All right. Bad loss for the Chargers. And Justin Herbert now has on his resume not one but two horrible, embarrassing, disaster losses within a 4-year period. So this is very discouraging for the Herbert truthers.
I'm one of those people.
Yep.
I had a meeting with the Herbert truther last night, actually, and we had said that this is going to be a long off season, but we are still going to stand behind our guy. He does not have the weapons that he needs at the moment, and they need to go and bring him T. Higgins. That is our one wish for the Herbert truthers. Now, yeah, it's an embarrassing game. I mean, it's 6-0, and it probably should have been at least 10-0. And I'm sitting there on the other side with decent amount of money on the Texans saying, oh, this game is over. And the way this game flipped after one play there where the ball is snapped over Stroud's head and he rolls out to the right and somehow finds the wide receiver over the middle for 40 yards. I mean, that changed a season for the Houston Texans.
It absolutely did. And I just had a feeling about them all week this week. Something about their playoff win last year against Cleveland, where we were all on Cleveland. Everyone in the world on Cleveland. They looked like the best. Cleveland looked like the best team in the league with Flacco for the last 2 months. And we were all on Cleveland, and they went in there and they just got their asses handed to them in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back to O'Connell here. And I don't know with O'Connell's sample size is still too small to say that he's absolutely great or that he's overrated. I like him, and that's all I can really confidently say right now. But I talked before about the toughness of his teams. How tough is his team when you get to these games where teams are tough and games are impossible and the talent level's equal and it comes down to who's putting their body on the line, who's risking their energy, and who's playing through fatigue more at the end of games, who's embracing the pain more and the physicality more. Is O'Connell's team, is he the coach to put you in that position to match up well? DeMeco Ryans, not to say O'Connell isn't, but DeMeco Ryans is. And his team, 2 years in a row now, his only 2 years coaching, absolutely ready for what the playoffs are all about. And Joe Mixon, another member of the running back revival, did just an awesome job in this game setting the tone.
How crazy is this that DeMeco Ryans, a guy that's won two straight years, first 2 years, he's won two playoff games. That's crazy. It's unbelievable. And, the 2 losses will be to 1 seeds on the road. So he's done a great job. I mean, I said this on Hardline last week. This was a down season for everything in Houston. They weren't good. They weren't that good of a team. They probably were the worst division winner, and Stroud had a down year.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, you win a playoff game and Stroud looks good, kind of erases a lot. And I think it does. I think, you're going to go into next season, regardless of what happens on Saturday afternoon, saying, we have our quarterback, we have our coach, we need to get healthy, make some slight improvements, and this team is going to be good again in a weak division. And they can be legit. That defense, Kevin, I didn't realize how good that defense was until last week. That defense was freaking awesome. Awesome against the Chargers. Will Anderson is going to be an all-pro player at some point. I mean, that's how good he is. Hunter on the other side is dangerous. Stingley's an all-pro level player. Guys on every aspect of that defense that could play in very important positions.
Yeah, D'Amico's done it 2 years in a row now, developing guys. They lost a few players this past offseason and lost two guys to Minnesota, Grenard and Cashman.
Yeah.
Lost both of them, and they've replaced it. They have not missed it. They went out, they got Hunter. They said, we got to get a veteran in the front seven so we don't have to develop another guy here. Let's get a guy that we know is good. And they're great, man. They're a team that's good in the regular season, elevating it in the postseason. And you're right. If they lose this week, your two losses are to 1 seeds on the road in the first 2 years of your quarterback. We talk about Washington flipping a franchise. How about where Houston looked before they drafted Stroud? You have to trade Watson. Your owner is one of the worst in the league. The fan base hates the owner. You had to trade your franchise quarterback. He didn't want to play for you. He sat out a whole year, and you had to hire D'Amico Ryans with a really uncertain coaching staff. Nobody really knew the guys he was bringing on. And I said before that draft, and you'll own when you're wrong, I'll own when I'm wrong. I said CJ Stroud's going to stink because he's in Houston. And this is a disaster pick. And then they traded up for Will Anderson 11 spots or 10 spots, whatever it was, to go get him at 3 after taking Stroud at 2. With that Browns pick they used, they traded up 10 spots, the Browns pick from Watson. And I said, well, what are you doing here? You could just sit down there and get a guy like Jameson Williams for your young quarterback and keep your capital on day 2. Two years later, 2 playoff wins later, 2 division wins later, CJ Stroud is really good. Will Anderson is great. Their wide receivers are unbelievably great. I know that they're missing Diggs and Dell, but Nico Collins, like, where did he come from, man? I know he was a 2nd-round pick. I know he was good in college. I know he was a good player as a rookie, but it just felt like one of those guys, good player as a rookie, good player overall, whatever. He's one of the best 7-8 guys in the league at the position. He is awesome.
And I'll admit when I'm wrong, I didn't think Collins was the number 1. And man, was I wrong. Coming into the year, I'm like, yeah, I like their core, and it was fine. It was good enough. It was good. I mean, they didn't need to add a 1 when you add, 2, guys that are close to 1s. I thought Diggs was coming into the year. He's not, obviously. Collins a 1. Yep. He's a 1. He's great. What a season. What a turnaround, I need to say. What a turnaround. Just think of what we thought of this team Christmas Day when they scored 2 points against the Ravens. Did you ever think that they would win a playoff game? No, I didn't. I didn't think so.
That was the low point of them for the season, where you just said they're done.
They're a first-round exit.
Wiped, and you want to get them in the first round. And then you had everybody rooting to play them in the first round. Steelers wanted them in round 1. LA wanted them in round 1. Everyone wanted them in round 1, every fan base, and you get what you ask for. And I love that they embraced Rex Ryan's first-round bye comment. And you saw that in the postgame where Rex, said on Get Up or whatever show he was on, I think it was Get Up the week before, he said, I didn't know the Chargers get a first-round bye for getting the 6th seed or the 5th seed. And that was a locker room cry for Houston, because you have Joe Mixon after, says we're smoking on that Rex Ryan first-round bye pack. And then D'Amico Ryans walks in the locker room and goes, man, that was their bye? And the whole team gets pumped. So Rex is infiltrating locker rooms before he gets into the Jets locker room in a week or 2. And that's, he's making an impact in the league. His voice is heard.
Yeah, I'm praying for you that doesn't happen.
Well, it's already, I think, out.
It is out. I saw that.
All right, you ready for Justin Herbert? Who'd you rather?
Yeah, let's do that.
Last week we did Mike Vrabel, so you can go check that out. That's on social media. If you missed the Mike Vrabel, who'd you rather? We'll talk about coaching in a minute or 2 here.
But I got some hate for that.
Yeah, you did get some hate for that. Well, we'll talk about it in a moment with Mike McCarthy, but he's wildly overhated. You got a lot of hate for saying McCarthy was better than Vrabel. There's a couple choices that I think I disagree with, but nothing that was completely unjustifiable. Like I would never ever take Mike McDaniel over Mike Vrabel. I would probably take. I'm trying to think of which guys you had last week, but either way, but that's not crazy. If you like offensive guys, I know you do.
Yeah,
and if you do, you'd probably take McDaniel over Vrabel. Is what it is. I also think when you look at the comments, a year off for Vrabel did wonders for him because Tennessee was not good when he left. They were bad teams the last 2 years. And people, after a year off, are starting to think that this guy was one of the elite coaches because we all remember the AFC title game and the 1 seed with Tannehill, but he lost those coordinators, and once he lost LaFleur and Smith, the team sucked.
Yeah, it definitely helped. I think working with Stefanski helped as well. I think he's talked about that too.
Yes.
Working with an offensive guy has helped. So I don't know. I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with him.
I did too, but yeah, I'm trying to see who I disagreed with you last week on. If I just skip towards the end here. No, this is not the right video. But I thought it was not crazy, the stuff you said. It's like you just have a preference.
Yeah. Don't hate my preference.
No, your preference. Oh, Dan Campbell was nuts. That was insane.
Okay.
Mike Vrabel over Dan Campbell. That one I cannot get behind at all. Okay. That was the only one that I really could see, like, dude. But I think, that, lucky for you, I don't think anyone watched to Dan Campbell because he was the last coach on the clip, and everyone was commenting, shut it off once he picked Mike McCarthy.
Oh, it's great. I love it.
All right. Justin Herbert, who'd you rather? You're a Herbert guy.
Yep.
12 names for our weekly Who'd You Rather. First name on the Justin Herbert Who'd You Rather is Jalen Hurts.
Justin Herbert.
Wow. Second name, Sam Darnold.
Justin Herbert.
Third name, Baker Mayfield.
That's a good one. That's a real good one. We've got 2 years of Baker playing really well. We have Justin Herbert. If Justin Herbert had that offense and those weapons, I think we would have a much better Justin Herbert.
What if, man? Justin Herbert.
Yep.
Jaden Daniels. Jordan Love.
Oh, boy.
This one can get you in trouble.
Oh God, the turnovers kill me with Love, and Herbert's done a good job of limiting them. Let's go with Justin Herbert.
Wow.
You don't agree with that one?
I don't disagree, but I just can't believe we're 4 of 5 Justin Herbert.
I'm a big Herbert. I mean, I'm an underrated Herbert guy.
CJ Stroud.
Is this going forward or just for next year?
Going forward, who'd you rather have?
I'll take my chance with CJ.
It's the right pick.
I'm still a believer in CJ, even though a lot of people have jumped off that bandwagon after a bad year.
Jared Goff.
Justin Herbert.
Oh my God.
You don't agree with that one either?
Oh, I don't agree with Hurts. I don't agree with Goff.
Are you serious?
Stafford.
Listen, there's not many guys.
There's not even a conversation. It's not even a conversation. I didn't even want to put him on the list. It's so easily Matthew Stafford.
But if it's like going forward, I'm not taking the 40-year-old.
Not going forward for the next 10 years, but maybe you want to give it like a 2-year window. Who's better?
Right, yeah, it's Stafford. I'm very high on Stafford too. I like Stafford.
My God, Purdy.
Herbert.
That one's good. Bo Nix.
Herbert.
Tua.
Herbert.
Yeah, easy. Prescott.
J. Herbs.
Wow, dude. So, by your logic, Herbert's like the 7th or 8th best quarterback in the league.
He is. He is.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
Goff was like 3rd or 4th best QB in all of football this year.
Yeah. Okay. You put Herbert in that situation.
We can't
come
keep
talk to
doing
me.
this with every single player, though.
Talk to me.
Everyone
Talk
does
to
it.
me after
Put
that.
him in this situation. Put him in this. Like, I mean, at some point, we just got to give Goff some credit, man.
Herbert, with virtually no weapons this year, had 3,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, 3 picks. What was his passer rating? 101. No weapons outside of Ladd McConkey.
But we've also seen, don't disrespect Ladd with that tone
It's
of
not.
voice.
That's like, that's it.
No, that tone of voice was very disrespectful to Ladd.
Yeah, all he's got is Ladd. That's it. He's got Ladd and nobody else. No help.
We've seen him with good offenses, and he's been very good statistically.
Yeah, with literally the worst coach in the league's history. I mean, the guy was a defensive coach, had the 32nd ranked defense in the league. Harbaugh comes in.
Every year they had the worst defense in the league.
Makes minimal changes, and they're the number 1 defense in the league. Minimal personnel changes, and they're the number 1 defense in the league. Please.
You're real high on Herbert here, man.
Yeah, with Harbaugh, they're going to win. He's going to not only win 1 Super Bowl, they're going to win multiple Super Bowls with Harbaugh and Herbert.
They're not even going to win their division.
He doesn't have to win the division.
They're the 3rd best team in their division now.
Stop that.
Peyton and Knicks and Denver will jump them.
You would take Knicks over Herbert.
No, I'd take Herbert over Knicks, but I'd take Peyton, Knicks, and what the Broncos have going for them over what the Chargers have going for them.
Okay, the next 10 years, yeah.
No, the next 3, I think next year Denver will be better.
No.
Yes.
They're only going to improve. They're going to sign T. Higgins. Their offensive line's great.
Why can't another team sign T. Higgins, though?
I'm just predicting that.
What if Cincinnati does? What if New England does? England only has $130 million in cap space.
Then we'll get another receiver for Herbert, and he'll be fine.
We will get another receiver for Herbert. Is this because he was supposed to be a Giant? Because Gettleman wanted him there?
Oh, I wanted him so bad. That hurt. I was a Ducks fan at that time. Oh, that hurt. That hurt.
I was a big Herbert guy, too. Now I'm just very fair weather on him. Don't love him. Don't hate him. I think that Saturday's performance is getting a little bit of an overreaction.
Hey, Peyton Manning was bad early on in his career in the postseason.
Don't compare Justin Herbert to Peyton.
I'm just saying.
Ever again.
Peyton was bad early.
He has 5 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, retired with every record in the book.
Well, who says Herbert's not going to do that?
I say Herbert's not going to do
that.
Okay. All right. You want to go to coaching carousel here and then wrap up?
Yeah.
How about McCarthy getting fired? Whatever happened. Contract didn't happen. I don't think he wanted to be back, to be honest.
It's a mistake by the Cowboys, I think, more so than it's not McCarthy. It's definitely not McCarthy. I'm going to admit where I'm wrong again. And, I think everybody was wrong on McCarthy for the last couple of years. When you really sit down and look at what he's done as a coach, and by the way, take into account that he hasn't had a good offensive coordinator in Dallas, and he's been calling the plays for the past couple of years. It's his offense. It's him. Mm-hmm. And look what he's done with Dak. Dak's had career years under him. They've won 12 games. Well, they won 12 games 2 years straight. Won a division. He obviously had Rodgers all those years and had success with him. He had success with Favre late in his career. So, he's been really good with quarterbacks. And you have a quarterback that you need to get the most out of because you're paying him $60 million and he's going to be coming off an injury. And you're not going to go back to the guy? I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't understand this. And he is going to be a home run hire for a team like Chicago. A home run. And I'll give you that reasoning after you go here on Dallas.
I look at the coaching cycle and I say, okay, the best coach was Vrabel, but the real best coach of the cycle got fired a day after Vrabel was hired. I think McCarthy was better than Vrabel. And that's not a knock on Vrabel. We're just both getting high on McCarthy here. But Dallas has to have a plan here. Jerry Jones has to have a plan here, and I don't think he really does because you missed the window to interview Glenn, Johnson, Nagy, and Spagnuolo first.
Mm-hmm.
And not that you wanted Nagy or Spagnuolo. You probably don't even want Glenn, but you could have had Ben Johnson in there for an interview. Now Ben Johnson is thinking about his meeting with the Raiders. He's thinking about his meeting with the Bears. He's not thinking about his meeting with the Cowboys because he didn't have one. So now you might have to wait 3 weeks until after the Super Bowl to talk to Ben Johnson, or until that bye week before the Pro Bowl to speak to him, because realistically, that is when you're going to have to wait till, because if they're not going, they have to lose to the Commanders for it to be earlier. So you have to wait until that week after the conference championships to get a virtual interview with Ben Johnson if they are going to the Super Bowl. So that's bad. And if you're firing McCarthy, a guy who the team likes, a guy who has had success, who is one of the top 15 coaches in the league, no matter how you slice it up, you better have a better plan than Deion Sanders to back it up.
Jerry doesn't want to hire the big name because Jerry wants to be the big name, right? Mm-hmm. Jerry wants to be in control. And I thought McCarthy was the perfect fit of that because he's a big enough name and a good enough coach where you have credibility and he's doing a good job, but he's not looking for that ultimate power. He doesn't want it. He doesn't need it. He wants to coach the football team, and that's it. And he had that guy with McCarthy, and he lets him go out the door. Why? What's the reasoning? It was McCarthy upset that he didn't get a contract. So I'm getting hate, but I just looked up my phone, and I'm being quoted for my Herbert stuff.
Bad Herbert stuff today. That's going to be on social media in an hour or two. I'm slicing that up the second that we finish this, and you are going to get eviscerated. That's bad. That's a bad who'd you rather. That's brutal who'd you rather.
I can't wait. I defend everything I said. I
know you do. That's the scariest part.
I love Herbert. Where was I on McCarthy? I don't even know.
If I had known how much you loved Herbert, I would have put like Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar in. Because
I would have never.
You might have said Herbert.
No, I would have never went over them. I was 2 years ago Herbert over Burrow, but I switched that when that was a conversation.
I was for their rookie years.
Okay. I think McCarthy's a home run in Chicago. You know why? Because not only are you getting a veteran guy in the room, but you're getting a guy that's also had success with quarterbacks. You're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a guy that can build a culture, a guy that's, coached in the division and had success and owned your ass, but you're also getting that offensive guru that is good with quarterbacks. I think it's a perfect match. I'd give him whatever he wants. And again, here's another situation, same thing in Dallas, where there's not going to be this power struggle. He's not going to care necessarily who he's reporting to. Is he reporting to Poles? Is he reporting to Warren? And what a mess that is, by the way. I mean, what an absolute mess that is in Chicago.
They're a disaster.
But if I'm McCarthy, I'm sitting there saying, I control what I can control. I already dealt with crazy ownership already. I could do it again to get to go work with another guy like a freak talent like Rodgers with Caleb. Yeah, I'm gonna accept that job.
Yeah, and I think what's just so puzzling with Dallas is the wait. Clearly, based on the reports that we've seen, neither party really stepped up with negotiation attempts.
Yeah.
No, I think everybody was okay with that just fizzling out and not working out. But for Dallas to not move quicker on this, for Dallas to decline the Bears' request, this is where I think my conspiracy comes in that I don't think is very far-fetched. I think Dallas tried to keep him. And I think that McCarthy said, I'm not staying here. Because maybe there's some disagreement with Jones. Maybe he says, there's better options for me. And I only have a few years left of head coaching. I'm in my 60s. I'm one of the oldest coaches in the league.
Right.
There's better options for me out there. I want to go coach Chicago. I like being up north. I like my time in Green Bay. I want to be in that division. And I want to go coach that team. Maybe he's saying that. Maybe he wants to be back in New Orleans, where he spent 5 years of his career from 2000 to 2005 calling their plays. So maybe you want to do that. I just don't think that Dallas declines that interview request with Chicago if they really didn't want him back.
No, they definitely wanted him back, and now he needs to have a plan for whatever the reason was as to why they did not get a deal done. You know, he needs a good answer here. I don't know what the answer is. He needs a good answer here.
And it better be for their fan base. It better be Johnson, or it better be, Carroll, I think, because you got to go for an experienced coach with this team. To lose Mike McCarthy and hire Deion Sanders, I think would just be such a
I'm
catastrophic
praying for it.
error. Yeah, you would love that.
I'd love that.
But that just feels like such an error. And then people are saying, what if Dallas traded Prescott for the first pick? And they wouldn't be able to do that really because it's like $124 million cap hit next year if they trade him. So they can't afford that. I don't know. And you're not trading Prescott to move up for Shedeur. But if Jerry offers Deion that job, he's taking it, obviously.
You think so? You think he's going to take it?
I think Deion would take it if it got offered to him. Absolutely. Kellen Moore's an option here, too. I think Jerry loved him when he was there.
I think Joe Brady is a sneaky option here as well.
He is. It probably would be an offensive guy. He leans towards the offensive guys. Just Garrett and McCarthy, our entire lifetime, is an offensive background at coach.
I would go more over Brady, though, because of the experience he's had there.
Yeah, I think that, he works well with Prescott.
Yeah.
McCarthy got rid of him because they had a philosophical difference. And
Right.
McCarthy was going to call the plays. And he told Kellen Moore, you can stick around, but I'm calling the plays. And Moore said, I'm going to go to the Chargers because I really don't want to just scheme and not call any plays. I'm a play caller. And that's cool. And now he's done a great job in Philly in the division. I could see Moore here getting this job. But where do you think McCarthy ends up? Do you think it's Chicago? I think New Orleans has a better shot than people give him credit for.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I think that he's got serious interest in going back there because I think he just loved it.
Don't understand why anybody would want that job. I mean, how are two of the most prominent names on this, cycle here, Glenn and McCarthy? I mean, how are they options for the Saints?
It's directly because they have ties to the team. It's directly because of that. Because if you think about it this way, I think maybe the most unappealing part of the job with the Saints is Mickey Loomis has been the general manager for 20 plus years. He got hired in 2004 and either 2002 or 2004, but he's been with the team since 2000. And he's been the GM since just a few years after that. So he's won a Super Bowl, but he's kind of ran his course, I think, typically based on what a general manager gets. So the fact that they're keeping him and they continue to extend him, he has all the power in the organization. He has Howie Roseman level power in the Saints organization without the winning part and without the dominant team on the field that Roseman puts on. So you need a guy in McCarthy and a guy in Glenn that have worked with Mickey Loomis extensively and have a good relationship with him. Those guys who have the respect for him, they'll go and work with him. Now, I don't know if either of those guys end up getting that job because right now I think Glenn's got an equal, if not better shot to end up the Jets head coach. And I think McCarthy's got same deal with Chicago. And Joe Brady, I think, has a very good chance with the Saints.
I think it's interesting because I think the Jets guy will be Glenn. Now, it's going to be, like you said, does Glenn accept it? Or does Glenn go to the Saints? I think the Jets will offer him the job.
And that's the thing with the Jets, too, is Glenn has the ties to them. He was a scout for them. He got his career in coaching and scouting started with the Jets. After he retired, he was a first-round pick for the Jets. He reportedly loves the franchise and loves the Johnsons. So those are the guys you need to identify for
He's on a short list.
Suck. Because for jobs that suck, a guy that doesn't know Woody Johnson, like Ben Johnson, probably doesn't know Woody at all. And doesn't know the ownership dynamic at all. So a guy like him, after reading and hearing everything you've heard the last year, longest playoff drought in the league, you're not going to go risk it if it's possibly as bad as people say it is.
Yeah.
But for Glenn, he's been there and he's probably saying, and this goes for the Saints and Jets, he's been there and he says, I know these guys. I like these guys. I've worked well with these guys. So I'm not worried about the article that The Athletic put out in the middle of December detailing atrocities that Woody Johnson's committed as owner, because I don't think it's true. And even if it is, I can work with him. That's where
he likes Woody Johnson. That I can't get over that.
That's what has been reported, that he has a relationship with them that's positive.
And this is your guy. This would be the number one guy you would hire.
I think Glenn, Flores are equal level candidates. Flores, let's talk about Flores for a second. I'd rather Glenn, because I think Flores might have a destructive personality.
Mm-hmm.
But Flores in Miami, I still was impressed to this day by what he did. 5-11 his first year, then 10 wins, 9 wins, playoff teams, doesn't get any playoff wins, but the quarterback play was atrocious.
Yeah.
I'll continue to bang the drum on Chris Greer doing an awful job building those teams the last 5, 6, 7 years. So I was pretty high on what Flores did when he left Miami. I thought it was wrong to get rid of him. And I think that he's got a track record there that works, and maybe merging some of his philosophies with O'Connell by spending time there could really help him. And he's been with Tomlin. He's been a legitimate coach on Tomlin and O'Connell's staff since being in Miami. Those are two pretty good guys to go take some notes from.
Yeah, I agree. I think it helped. I think his last couple of stops here helped. And you're right. I mean, he did a lot of great things with Miami, so I don't think that could all be thrown out the window. He's a great defensive coach. We saw that, obviously. I mean, call it defense, man. I mean, what a job he did with this Minnesota team this entire year. So I would go Glenn 1. I think Glenn, out of the first-time head coaches in this cycle, is going to be the best guy.
I agree. I think Glenn is
a home run.
Johnson.
He's a home run.
Johnson is the perfect candidate for small market with a quarterback that you need to get to the next level. You know, let him go in, call the plays, doesn't have to deal with media extensively. Glenn is the guy that I think you need to come and conquer like a really challenging job.
You want to hear something funny? And you know I'm an offensive guy. Know I'm an offensive guy. And you know how much I want Caleb to succeed and how I think they need an offensive coach. I think if I had to choose between Glenn and Johnson in Chicago, I think it would be Glenn.
I like Glenn a lot. I tweeted it last week. I think Glenn's the second best coach in the cycle before Mike McCarthy got fired.
Yeah.
But just food for thought on the offensive coach stuff too, because a lot of Jets fans say, well, they need an offensive coach because we haven't had competent offense in XYZ years, however many years. John Harbaugh never called a play in his life. Ravens have a number one offense almost every year. He's developed multiple quarterbacks in his time.
Yeah.
He picks the right staff. Dan Campbell, who these guys are all coming from now, sucked the first year, had a lot of trouble developing the offense the first year, fired Anthony Lynn, hired Ben Johnson. Great offense. Number one offense multiple times. A lot of other guys. Tomlin has had number one offenses. Belichick had a million number one offenses. I know he had Brady. Aaron Glenn's not walking in here and getting Brady, but
yeah,
you know, defensive coaches, Sean McDermott, right in your division, has found a way to develop a quarterback and have number one offenses with multiple offensive coordinators now. Mm-hmm. So I don't buy the whole, in order to be good and score points, you need an offensive coach. I don't really agree with that. But the
good coaches will evaluate other good coaches and bring them in.
Exactly.
And keep them for as long as they can.
We just talked about Herbert and Staley. Those teams scored points with Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler, Hunter Henry. Those teams scored points.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get a stop because their defensive coach sucked at defense. So you need defense to win games too.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see where I also think some franchises, like, and this is like a complete, personal thing. Some franchises just feel like they need defensive coaches. Guys like hard asses, culture builders. The Steelers are one of them. I don't know if I said this here on Hardline. The Jets are one of those teams that I believe need a coach like this. I think the Giants potentially could be a franchise like that where they need that hard-ass defensive culture builder head coach. Maybe that's what they need after Daboll if Daboll's gone after this year. So the Jets are absolutely one of those franchises, and this is the perfect spot to go get one of those guys because they need a complete revamp of their culture.
There's definitely, and we see all those memes of offensive coaches versus defensive coaches, and it's like Ryan Gosling is the offensive coach, and then the defensive coach in the meme is just this most rundown, like homeless guy.
Right.
And it kind of has like an underlying truth to it of the offensive coaches are these real flashy play callers. They're going to score points. And most of these offensive coaches need veteran defensive coordinators.
Mm-hmm.
For defensive coaches, there's definitely more of a, because it goes to what that side of the ball feels. There's more of that aggressiveness, that toughness. So I think that the culture builders a lot of times do come in defense, but ultimately culture building just comes in winning. And that's what they need to find, these teams, is which coach gives you the best chance to win every week and puts you in good positions.
You see this video of McVay and Snead when they drafted Nakua in the 5th round? Yep. We're going to nail this pick.
Yep. They know it. Snead's the best drafting general manager in football.
It's crazy.
Nobody drafts better than Les Snead.
Crazy how they're, the whole roster. 2nd, 3rd, 4th round guys, 5th. What was Kyron a 5th rounder?
Yeah.
What a franchise.
And they understand when to trade picks and when to not trade picks, obviously, because they got rid of a ton of assets. They get Stafford, they get Jalen Ramsey, they win the Super Bowl, and now they've rebuilt it quick. It felt like after that first year with Baker Mayfield and the Stafford injury that they were going to suck for a little bit, but they're right back to contender status.
They made the trade with the Giants. The Giants traded up to get Hyatt, and the Giants traded, whatever, like 89 and then another pick in the hundreds, and they used 89 on Kobe Turner.
Yeah. Turner, they obviously Verse in the first round, fell to them, and they capitalized. They were definitely trying to trade up for Brock Bowers at this past draft.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
They definitely wanted Bowers on their team.
Could you imagine that?
Oh my God. You wouldn't have Verse, but that offense would just be.
He would have broke the record still.
Oh yeah. He'd be maybe the biggest star in the league right now in this postseason. Is like, I can't wait to watch Brock Bowers play. He might be that guy, non-quarterback wise.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. Good. Great.
Vrabel?
Yeah. You like this? You like this one?
Yeah, it fit. It's perfect.
It's just the right move. It's the safe move. It's the right move. Couldn't risk it with Johnson being no good. I'm sure that Kraft gave him an honest interview too.
Yeah.
The Rooney Rule thing was a little crazy.
Glenn did an interview there.
And good on him.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was necessarily because of the Rooney Rule. I don't think it was Glenn saying, and it could have been, and he would have been in his rights to do it. I don't think it was him saying the way that they just treated these two black coaches. Since I'm a black coach, I'm going to feel the same way and not go. But I think it was just whether he was black or white, he looked at it and said, these are not serious interviews.
Yeah.
They're hiring Vrabel, and I'm not wasting my time.
And the only other guy they were going to consider was Johnson, and that was it.
You knew you weren't a contender for that, so
you know what? It's on Kraft. Kraft admitted he made a mistake with Mayo, and good on him for fixing the mistake.
Yes,
right. He should have never just had Mayo be the guy last year when you had a chance to interview Vrabel last season. You don't think Vrabel would have taken this job if he was offered it last year?
No, he absolutely would have, and I think pin some of this on Belichick too, because Mayo was the known successor for years in New England, and he never made him the coordinator. He made his son the defensive coordinator. I thought that was looking back at it, that's a little screwed up. Right. When Belichick's running the defense anyways, so he pulls a total nepotism, all-time nepotism move to make his son defensive coordinator. Steve could very well just be the linebackers coach, and Mayo could be the DC. But if you know that a guy that's a former player of yours, a guy that's stuck by your side for so long, is going to be the next head coach, let him call a side of the ball. Don't make your son do it.
Yeah, maybe he was getting back at Kraft for all those years of.
There's some of that going on because Belichick and Mayo don't even like each other apparently now.
No, they don't. I don't know. Kraft screwed him with the Garoppolo thing and this and that, and I don't know. It was a bad ending.
It was bad ending. They closed the book. I think good thing for Vrabel is he doesn't have to follow Belichick. That's a huge bonus for me when you have a guy like that. And May's in the same spot. You didn't have to follow Brady. You don't have to follow Belichick. DeBoer at Alabama had to follow Saban. That's an impossible job because you go from just absolute greatness to being bad. Mayo could not. No coach in the league this year wins games with that roster.
You think DeBoer gets fired after this year if he has another 9-win season?
Probably does. The booster club and the donors are so aggressive and they're so passionate that, and that's why Milroe went to the draft, because DeBoer probably told him you have to transfer because we cannot have you here next year. I need to get a quarterback that runs my system. I can't have a mobile quarterback. I need a pocket passer.
Yeah,
and I think the urgency is going to be high for a guy like that right now. And then you'd want to take that job a year later. I would never want to follow the greatest of all time in anything.
No,
just can't do it. Like Derek Jeter was the same way, and that's still nuts with Yankee fans. The amount of pressure that probably puts on Anthony Volpe, who didn't even follow him, to continue to say he's the next Jeter.
Yeah,
that's just crazy stuff.
It's wild.
And Vrabel has the mindset to deal with the pressure and expectations that come with New England too.
Yeah, he's been there. He knows it. One more thing before we get out of here. Did you see what Shad Khan had said?
Yeah, dude, what a loser.
He'll fire the GM if the guy that he wants says he wants him fired.
First of all, should never even been brought back. Loser move, bringing Ball.
Yeah.
And you took your coaching job and went from attractive. There's legitimate beat reporters, Mike, this morning. I don't know if you saw it, saying that there is a possibility that Robert Saleh gets that job. That is not, like, he is a serious candidate. He's not a Rooney Rule candidate because he fulfills it. He is a legitimate candidate because people who are still there from 10 years ago when he was the linebackers coach love him.
That's a problem.
And
now that they like Saleh, that there's guys that are still there from 10 years ago. That's the problem.
That's the problem, yeah. But I think you look at it and you say, you know what? You kept Balky. How many guys are going to take this job now? Because Balky is on life support, I think, as GM. If he gets fired if you win 2 games next year, he gets fired, Lawrence still sucks, and you just couldn't do anything because the roster didn't get better, you cannot, you can't go into it with this confident mindset that I have 4 or 5 years here as a coach. You can't do that.
I think if Johnson's their guy and Johnson says to him, you got to fire Balky, I think he's going to fire Balky.
Yeah, I think they would. But it's crazy, man. It's just crazy that he said that right in front of him after bringing him back. He's one of the worst general managers in the league. He must have a very good relationship with ownership, though, everywhere he goes. He must be very impressionable because he kept the Niners job after Harbaugh left for a few years, too, and he was terrible. So up until Shanahan was there. So I don't know, man. That job got very unattractive when they kept Balky. Yep. And I'm shocked the Patriots kept Wolf.
Yeah.
I thought they would just let Vrabel come get his own guy. Which
took the guy from the Giants.
Yeah, he leaves. He might be Vrabel's guy in that front office now.
Yeah.
But
it's going to be a power struggle for a year.
It will be. And Kraft will fire Wolf if Vrabel wants him to next year.
Well, Vrabel will just fire Wolf, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Vrabel will walk right into his office and say, you're done. Just as Bill would have. But I think Kraft maybe likes that too. A coach, because that's all he's known. His coaches have been Parcells, Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, now Gerard Mayo, and now Mike Vrabel. That's what he knows, is a coach that can take the reins.
Yeah.
And I think he's cool with that. He has a little bit of that Jerry Jones in him, that ego, where I think he wants to be the face of things. He wants to be recognized and given credit. I think that documentary that they released, that total sham documentary that shredded Belichick, was an example of that. But Kraft definitely wants a guy because I think he knows he's not really a football guy. No. And he needs a guy that can be in control at all times. And Vrabel needs to be in control at all times.
Big guy, Vrabel. Big guy, tough guy.
You see him at the press conference next to Kraft?
He's huge.
I mean, I'm sure Kraft is probably like 5'6", 5'7", but Vrabel's standing next to him. It's like when an NBA team drafts a player and the owner shakes his head, but he's like a 6'11" European power forward.
Yeah.
And you're just like, man, that kid's big. And Vrabel's up there. I'm like, holy crap.
Vrabel looks like an NFL head coach.
Then you think back to that report last year of owners that interviewed him were intimidated by his physical stature, and they wouldn't hire him to coach. And you look at him and you're like, maybe I would have been too.
But then I think that's the exact definition of a guy I'd want to coach my team. Like, tough guy. These guys will respect him. Former player. Oh my God!
And then you contrast him to Mike McDaniel in the division, wearing his joggers at his shins.
Who I chose over Vrabel.
I know, wearing his GQ outfits on the sideline, his GQ Dolphins sweatsuits, and you're like, this guy's, I mean, Vrabel's going to eat him for lunch today. Good stuff, New England. Congrats getting the coach. Good coach. Good coach. We'll see how great he is in New England. We really will, because I don't care how much cap space you have. I don't care what draft pick you have. He is starting from nothing except for some promise at quarterback, which is big, but there's a development to be done here with Drake May that is essential. And his offensive staff, we should start to hear it the next few days about who he's going to hire.
Right.
All right. Good to roll.
All good.
All right. Thanks for watching Hardline tonight.
Tomorrow we'll be out Thursday.
Thursday Hardline, talking division round, Wildcard weekend, everything you need to know. Coast to Coast probably back Thursday. Tune in mornings for the bunker, and Burrows once again. Whenever we are going to pop one on in the offseason.
When Alonzo signs,
we'll pop it up.
And we'll have a date, I guess, soon when we're going to start up full time.
Yep, exactly. It's coming. It's coming in the next probably by the end of February, beginning of March. We might start a little earlier than opening day this year, because last year that's when we started. I think that we'll give it maybe a bit of a buffer and talk some spring training and stuff. All right, cool. Later. Thanks for watching. Good weekend. This weekend's football and a bigger weekend coming up next time. So we'll be back on probably Monday, Mike. You think we'll wait till after the games here? Mm-hmm. Probably be back Monday for the Sunday recap instead of doing it Sunday night before the Sunday night football game, because we want to get all the games in our episode. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.